Billy Ray Turner is one of two accused killers in the murder of NBA star Lorenzen Wright.
The Los Angeles Clippers select Lorenzen Wright from the University of Memphis.
A first-round 7th overall draft pick in 1996, Wright went on to play 13 seasons in the NBA before retiring in 2010. Wright's body was discovered in these woods a few days after his mother reported him missing in July of 2010. According to the medical examiner, he had been shot multiple times, suffering gunshots to the head and chest. His 6'11" frame so decomposed, he weighed 57 pounds at autopsy.
Because he put it on me because he knew I was going to take care of him.
The mystery surrounding his death baffled investigators for years, until a break in the case led to this announcement in 2018.
This morning, the Shelby County Grand Jury indicted Billy R. Turner for the premeditated first-degree murder of Lorenzen Wright.
Turner wasn't the only suspect. Wright's ex-wife, Shira, was also indicted. In 2019, she pleaded guilty for her role in the murder and was sentenced to 30 years in prison. But Turner denies any involvement in Wright's death.
He wants, his day in court.
And so does Wright's mother.
I want a trial because I want to know everything.
Deborah Marion has been waiting more than a decade for answers, but the wait for justice has taken a toll. And at this hearing, she cannot contain her emotions.
How could you have murdered my son? That's what I need to know, just how.
The outburst prompts a sympathetic but stern rebuke from the judge.
Right, I understand your pain. You're not doing a member of your son good. And you're not helping your son. You're not helping the administration of justice by engaging in that sort of an outburst. Do you have any questions, ma'am?
No, I told him what I want to say.
So please don't do that again.
Billy Ray Turner faces life in prison if he is convicted of first-degree murder.
All right, we want to bring in now live in the conversation, Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter. She's standing by in Memphis, Tennessee, watching that jury selection as it's progressing today. Chanley, good afternoon once again. How are things at this point?
Still moving along. There are 80 prospective jurors inside the courthouse behind me in a very small courtroom. They filled out detailed questionnaires that both sides are using to go through this process to impanel a jury, hopefully by the end of today, so they can begin opening statements tomorrow. We do know that this jury, once impaneled, will be sequestered for the duration of the trial. We're expecting this trial to last up to a couple of weeks, Julie, even going into the weekend if the jurors have no objections to that, given that they are sequestered during the duration of this trial, because this was something that made headlines across the nation. We had an NBA star that was murdered, even though it's almost now 12 years since his murder here in Memphis. People still know and remember who Lorenzen Wright was and are keeping up definitely with this case. It's all over the local news, especially today, this morning. In fact, some of the local reporters caught up with the prosecutor inside the courthouse earlier. He said to expect that their star witness, Jimmy Martin, he's the cousin of Shira Wright, the ex-wife of Lorenzen Wright, to testify on behalf of the prosecution. He's really the one that broke this case wide open for prosecutors several years ago, and of course investigators. And the prosecutor would not say, though, if we would hear from Shira Wright herself, the ex-wife. Unlikely, but always a possibility, Julie.
Oh, definitely. Chanley, we know this case kind of really broke wide open thanks to that confession from Shira's cousin, Jimmy Martin. What details do we know about him, please?
Right. Well, Jimmy Martin is currently incarcerated for a conviction of second-degree murder of his girlfriend. Now, we know that he's going to be called in to testify. He's one that he went to the authorities to confess that he was part of this conspiracy. He heard Shira Wright, Lorenzen's ex-wife, and Billy Ray Turner, her yard man at the time, had a friendship or relationship of some sort, talking about doing away with Lorenzen Wright. So he was able to tell prosecutors about those conversations, the planning of it, the execution of the murder, and then the aftermath of the murder. He told authorities that he went with Billy Ray Turner to Mississippi, Walnut, Mississippi, threw the murder weapon into a lake there. Authorities were able to go back, Julie, find that murder weapon. It matched the ballistics and shell casings at the scene, of course, and that's what really blew this case wide open. We had the indictment of Shira Wright, which she pled guilty to. Of course, now Billy Ray Turner. It's been a long time for him to come to trial because of COVID-19 and because it did take 7 years for authorities to finally piece this together.
Right. Remind us again, if you would, please, Chanley, the charges now that Billy Ray Turner is facing as he's getting ready to head into this jury trial.
He's facing 3 counts. He was indicted, of course, of first-degree murder for Lorenzen Wright. He was also indicted for the conspiracy of the murder. Again, his co-conspirator named in the indictment, Shira Wright, the ex-wife of Lorenzen, as well as an unindicted co-conspirator. We know that to be, of course, Jimmy Martin, Shira's cousin, the one that went to the authorities and cooperated. He's also charged with the criminal attempt to commit first-degree murder. So the indictment alleges between April 2010 and July 17th, 2010, that these co-conspirators attempted to murder Lorenzen Wright in his Atlanta home. So after he had divorced Shira Wright, he moved to Atlanta with a friend. That's where he was living at the time. We expect Jimmy Martin to testify that he and Billy Ray Turner went to Atlanta to try to murder Lorenzen Wright at that time. But when they went into his apartment, they broke in, there was this unknown man on the couch. So they didn't go through with that. That's the basis of the attempted murder charge. And of course, we know several weeks or months later, they actually went through with it when Lorenzen was visiting here in Memphis. He has 6 children with Shira. He was visiting here with family and friends to attend one of his son's basketball games, and that's when he did go missing.
6 children. Wow. This is just so sad. So sad. I know you know that, Chanley, and the jury's gonna know all about this soon, and all of the kids left behind. Just dreadful. And now mom is locked up too for the next 30 years. So you know what a horrible situation these kids are in. Speaking of her being locked up 30 years, we know she got this deal in connection to the killing. What do we know about the plea deal? What do we know about what she might have said in open court or even to the media over the years?
Right, she has spoken to the media, particularly the commercial appeal here in Memphis. Her attorneys at the time she did enter the plea also spoke to some media after she entered that plea of guilty in 2019. Again, she pled to 3 counts as well. Of course, first-degree murder, the facilitation of that, the conspiracy, of course, and then the attempt to commit murder, as I just discussed, and the first-degree murder. And she pled so in exchange for a sentence of 30 years. Now, we know with good behavior and guidelines that she could possibly only be in for 9 years. So she's expected to be eligible for parole, I believe, in 2029, Julie. So she's not really going to serve the entire 30 years that she did agree to. Now, in court, she did want to say something, but her attorneys advised her not to during this plea arrangement. However, her attorneys reportedly after told the local media that she did help facilitate the murder of her husband, and that if it had gone to trial, her defense probably would have been something as though Lorenzen Wright was allegedly abusing her over the years. She felt threatened with her life, her children's lives to do so. But as you can imagine, Shira Wright has been vocal over the years, even while behind bars. There was a interview she did in 2019 with the commercial appeal where she sort of backtracked. She even filed her own pro se petition in court trying to do away with her guilty plea, saying it was coerced and she had ineffective assistance of counsel. She pointed the finger, Julie, at her cousin, Jimmy Martin, again, saying that he was the one with the true motive and the true opportunity to do so and was throwing her under the bus. However, she did withdraw that petition, and there hasn't been any movement on that since. So, end of the story, she's serving time in jail.
Right.
Prison.
Well, and just hearing you share all of that with us makes me think we could see some sparks flying, especially if she's called as a witness and if she and her cousin start pointing the finger at each other. This could really create some trouble there in the courtroom and then legally too, if the state is saying, look, her case is disposed of, she did it, she was involved, and if she backtracks in any way. Wow, this is certainly one to watch. Chanley, I know you're also watching what's going on with any motions that are left outstanding before the court. Is there anything that you know of that the judge still needs to rule on before tomorrow?
Well, we do know a lot has been taken care of and a lot was agreed to as we poured through the court documents. There are several that stood out to me in the court filing, and we know that there was I believe there's a motion here. It is independent testing of the firearm. That's that murder weapon that was found in the Mississippi Lake. The defense wanted to have that tested independently, their own experts to see if it matched the actual ballistics in the case. They also wanted to suppress the cell phone data in this case, something we don't really ever see, but apparently cell phone data is going to be very important. In fact, there was a 911 call placed by Lorenzen Wright seconds before he was murdered, Julie. We're expecting to hear that in this case, as well as some exchanges, communications between Shira and Billy Ray Turner, because the authorities tapped their communications once they were developed as suspects in this case. So that'll be key for this trial. There was a motion from the defense. They want all impeaching evidence that the prosecution intends to use. As you can imagine, a lot of the witnesses in this case have extensive criminal history. So both sides want to be able to impeach on their criminal histories. And then the state is seeking an enhanced punishment here against Billy Ray Turner. If indeed he does actually testify, they gave notice that they would want to, of course, impeach him on his criminal history. And if he is convicted here in the state of Tennessee, the jury would stay on and determine sentencing, and the prosecution would argue his criminal history, his repeat offender status as something that would be an aggravator to sentence him to life without the possibility of parole.
Oh my, Chandler, if you know, what is Billy Ray Turner's criminal history?
Sure, absolutely. Most of it stems from the 1990s, Julie. And so what I'm looking at here in the court filing, he had reckless endangerment with a deadly weapon, 2 counts of that, theft over $500, the sale of cocaine, criminal attempt to commit kidnapping. He spent 2 years in prison for that, criminal attempt to commit aggravated assault, a 2-year sentence for that, 2 counts actually of criminal attempt to commit aggravated assault. And it's from 93, 94, 92. So that's what is specifically mentioned in this motion to seek enhanced penalty, as well as to impeach him if he does choose to take the stand in his own defense.
Oh my, and he's a deacon too, right, Chandler? He's a deacon too.
Yes, that's where they met. Shira Wright alleged they met at the same church. He was a deacon. Of course, he's a business owner. He was her yard man. Now, prosecutors previously have indicated in court that they had some sort of a sexual relationship too, Julie. This is going to be a salacious trial with a lot of information coming out that probably we really haven't even heard yet in the media, and even though it's been so widely covered over the last decade.
Sure, and if there was a sexual relationship, that sounds like motivation to have a husband killed to me. I'm sure it does to you as well. Chanley Painter, great stuff there. Thank you so much for your reporting. We're going to squeeze in a quick break. When we come back, we're going to keep previewing this case that is ahead tomorrow. We're going to take you back to Ohio when the jury's back. And in the meantime, we're going to talk about Jussie Smollett's